Hey friends, welcome back to the Gentle and Lowly Co podcast. I'm your host, Addie. And first, I'm just so glad you're here. I'm so thankful to be with you today, wherever you are, taking a walk, taking a drive, whatever it is, I am just thankful for you. And if you're a new friend or an old friend, just welcome to the podcast. And in today's episode, we are going to be answering the question, are you trying to do too much? Now, before we get into our main topic for the week, this question is just something that is coming out of my conversations with my friends, with my family, and I just think it's a good reset to reassess, especially as we enter into a new month. Happy February, friends. And just think about, what are the things we really ought to commit to, or we're trying to commit to? What are the things that are going to make us more like Jesus? And the spoiler of it all is we can't do everything all at once. So what should we really be putting our time to in this season, whatever season you are in? So that's just a teaser for our main segment. But first, to kick things off for the week, let's just dive into music of the week. And oh man, I had a couple good songs, I think, for this week. There were several different things that just really stood out to me, but it took me a while to figure out this exact song because the lyrics were just stuck in my head, and maybe you can guess it before I tell you, but the lyrics are, isn't he good? Isn't he great? Isn't he faithful? Look at my life. Look at what he's done. And you probably already know what it is if you know Phil Wickham, but there's this specific version of this song that he did. And so it's the hometown version, Isn't He Good, by Phil Wickham. And that one, I love the acoustic, kind of the tempo to it. And it just it's almost like an anthem that we can repeat. Like, isn't he good? Isn't he great? Isn't he faithful? Look at my life. Look at what he's done. And that's just a song that I've been having on repeat. And so definitely go listen to that one if you're looking for some encouragement for your Monday. That has definitely been a song that's been on repeat lately. And I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. It's just a really good reminder and just really great encouragement to remember what God has done and to remember his faithfulness, and just the encouragement of remembering that he's sovereign, he's good, he's great, and look at what he is doing. So that's the first song for this week. And next, usually we talk about other podcasts or mention them here of like, oh my goodness, what about that person's podcast or this one? But sometimes I don't know if I've ever done for music of the week a specific podcast episode. But I tell my guests and we tell our friends, it doesn't always have to be music. It can be a podcast. It can be an audiobook. Any way that you are growing or any way that you think God is revealing something to you, that is the whole point of the segment. So it was really interesting that this podcast was kind of coming up in conversations as well. And so it is 5 reasons to do a digital fast on the Next Up podcast with Grant Skeldon. And this was just such a good conversation with Grant and his guest, Darren. I learned a lot just about our digital landscape. So I highly recommend this episode. And he kind of challenged, 5 reasons, why do you need to do a digital fast? And it's no surprise that we talk about Sabbath here, that I love this episode. And so, friend, I think you will really be encouraged and benefit so much from the insights that Darren had. He just has done a lot of research on this topic. And it really encouraged me, but also challenged me, where I love the good, that podcasting or, social media, the digital landscape, the things that we can do to propel the gospel forward. But on the flip side, what are some good and healthy boundaries to really protect the things that are going to help us look more like Jesus and walk in his steps? And so I just thought that's such a good thing. And just, protecting our mental health and stuff too. So we want to have those kind of conversations here, and highly recommend that episode. Just, it kind of overflowed into my conversations this week, which goes into the theme of the week. So this theme of the week, it truly, really was just a really great week, getting to spend time with family and visiting work in person. I travel for work usually once a month, and so I go on campus at the university I work for, and I was just really thankful for the gift of community, whether that is with my family or my work. and just the gift it is to be together and to spend time with the people you love. And so that's something that I was really reflecting on. And this podcast, came up in a couple conversations, and it's like, oh, what does that look like to really maybe set your phone down, and how do we communicate that if we're trying to do this well, but just honoring people's time, but also getting back to people in a timely manner. So there's a lot of nuances that can come out of it because we're so connected, and we just have access to everyone at all the time. So I will challenge you, as it challenged me, to consider your relationship with your phone or with your digital media, whether that's Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or X. It doesn't really matter what it is, or even email. Darren talked about email. And so that's kind of, a correlation of theme of the week and music of the week, where really wanting to be mindful of when I'm with people, I'm genuinely with people. So let that be a challenge for us this week to say, hey, I am so grateful to be spending time with you that I'm going to put my phone, if you're on YouTube, you can see, I'm going to put my phone all the way over here in this other room. They talked about doing that. And so I want to be someone who does that, to just be present with the people I love and to show them that I'm available for, for one another. So, if you need to do that for a friend as well, and I think we can show the love of Jesus through that example. It is kind of wild that it means so much to put down your phone and not just have it on the table, but put it aside or put it down. And so that's just a really good challenge for both of us, friend. So yeah, theme of the week, music of the week. And now let's just get into our topic. Are you trying to do too much? So first, we are in a brand new month. It's February, and you might have felt like January was a really long month or a really fast month. And either side of the spectrum, wherever you fall, or even in the middle where there are some fast weeks and some slow weeks, it is kind of wild to me that we're already in February, but at the same time, it's finally February. And maybe that just has something to do with the winter in the Northern Hemisphere, where it's like, okay, I really like the snow, but I'm ready for spring, right? We're ready for spring. And so there can still be this sense though, where because it's getting a little bit warmer, and if you're in Indiana, like when it's over like 47 degrees, if it's like 50 degrees, we're all excited and we think we can do everything. So that's just kind of a state of mind, I think. If you are in Indiana and you're like, oh my goodness, the snow is not here, we can go outside and go for a walk in a sweatshirt, like it just opens up more possibilities and opportunities, especially where I live in the country. There can just feel like there are more things to do. At the same time, we can still be in this phase where it's, still the beginning of the year, still quarter 1, and it's like, oh, we've already had a month past. What are the goals that either I've been setting, or even the spiritual goals, things I want to be challenged in and grow myself in? And you can either feel like, oh my goodness, I already messed up. I already have failed and I can't keep going. Or you can be like, well, I didn't even try, so why should I even try and start this thing? Or you can just feel overwhelmed. So that's one of my questions to you, friend. Do you feel overwhelmed? Honestly, today, it can be a never-ending to-do list, endless emails and social media notifications, or Teams or Slack messages, depending on your work. The world truly never sleeps. There's always something to do at any given time. So is there time to really get anything done? Do you feel this restlessness where you're overwhelmed and you're just not getting the right stuff done? You're doing all these minute tasks or all these things. You're like, oh, I have to get this done. I have to check it off, but you're not getting the right things done. Well, there's good news for you and I, friend. I feel the same way too. You're not alone, friend. Many of us feel this way, where we're trying to do all the things, or we just do whatever is most important on our list. However, why do we feel this way? So many of us feel this way. There has to be something deeper, right? So think about this other question here. Do you have a priority, like a singular priority, or priorities? Now, this was really mind-boggling to me. Did you know this about the word priority? It is so wild, and it really blew my mind. I believe I heard it on another podcast or an audiobook of some sort, but I had to go look it back up because this truly changed my perspective about priorities. And again, I haven't mastered anything. We're still putting in those 10,000 hours, being young adults, working with excellence, working in the marketplace or in ministry, whatever that looks like for you. However, this perspective about priority, this quote from Greg McKeown, I'll put his name in the show notes and link this quote below. This quote was so helpful and truly helped me rethink about how am I going to spend my time and what is really a priority. So this quote says, "The word priority came into the English language in the 1400s. It was singular. It meant the very first or prior thing. It stayed singular for the next 500 years. Only in the 1900s did we pluralize the term and start talking about priorities. Illogically, we reasoned that by changing the word, we could bend reality." Let's just let that sink in. That is absolutely mind-blowing. Like, only in the 1900s. That's only 125 years ago. That is wild. That is when this word changed from priority to priorities. So really think about this. Are we setting ourselves up for success when we say everything is a priority or has priority or falls into the category of our priorities? So, you think about, okay, I have my list and this is the ultimate priority. But most of the time today, I found myself even doing this of like, okay, these are my top 3 priorities or top 2 or top 5 things, or even with our goals, how are each one of them a priority? We can say, oh, I want to do these 5 or 10 goals. Each one of them is a priority. I want to read the entire Bible, like me, right? We said that at the beginning of the year. Or I want to read more books this year, or I want to write, or I want to run so many 5Ks. Shout out to my friend Ellie. She's doing that. And, we've talked about the focus on this podcast. I have learned so much from Michael Hyatt and Marissa Hyatt and Ken Ferrari. And then even shout out to the old hosts, Blake Stratton and Courtney and Verbs and Nick. Oh my goodness, all of them. I've learned so much from that podcast and just from the framework of the Full Focus Planner. We've talked about that in previous episodes about journaling and resources. I believe it's episode 19, way throwing it back, but I'll link that in the show notes. But really think about this. New things. And honestly, I do love podcasts. That's one of the reasons, because there's just so much we can learn and we can glean from other people's stories and their wisdom and experience. But there are so many books right around me, and I say, oh, I don't have time. You might be like me in that way, where it's like, oh, we don't have time, but where is our time being spent? Am I watching, maybe several shows in the evening when I could just watch one? Or could I swap out that TV time and read, right? Really think about, okay, if I want to make this a priority, something else has got to give, right? So let me ask you this question that I've been asking myself. Is there one priority that isn't really a priority you can remove? So it might not be this huge thing, but you realize it's actually taking up a lot of your time where you really want to grow in this way. So if you want to go on a walk every day, it's like, okay, what if you make it a priority and, getting home from work, or when you log off, you say, okay, we're going to go outside for 10 minutes and I'm going to walk around my neighborhood, or 15 minutes and just do a short walk, instead of logging off and maybe going to watch a show or just scrolling on Instagram. Actually having some visual cues of like, okay, I'm gonna have some different clothes when I get home from work so then I can go outside and go for a walk. Or I'm just gonna immediately, get my dog and we're gonna go outside and we're just gonna, walk around the block and not take, headphones or anything. Sometimes headphones are good and I love music, obviously, but thinking about what is truly important. So if removing something seems entirely impossible, just consider pausing for a while, like putting something on pause, and you think, okay, it's not totally removing it, right? But just reassessing its importance in a month, right? Or even a couple weeks, but I challenge you to a month, reassess in a month and just say, hey, maybe I'm going to pause this thing over here because I don't really see any fruit or see any way that it's really growing me or helping me, carry the gentle love of Jesus. And so we're just going to pause that. And maybe it's something that's going to come back up. You could even, think about hobbies. Patrice and I talked about that a couple weeks ago, where some seasons one hobby picks up, if it's a winter hobby or if it's a spring hobby. So maybe for our gardener friends, that's probably on pause for right now. So think about, okay, what is maybe something else that's in this winter season that's going to go on pause, maybe to make room for something new. Our last kind of thought here is, I would challenge you, and I'm going to challenge myself, is to have one focus for the month. What is one thing you'd like to commit to for a month? Just one thing, one singular thing, whether it's reading more. Shout out to my friend Lydia, where she's reading every single day. She just wants to read, and I think that's awesome. And you can even have a challenge like she's doing, where at the end of the month, she's going to share one book that she does read. So there can be some things like that with accountability where it's built in, where, if you don't do it, it's like, it's okay. It's not the end of the world, but you have that challenge and you have other people to kind of hold you accountable. And also, why not share more great resources? I love that. But if you did this one thing, would you look more like Jesus? Would you have more peace for yourself, or would God give you more peace? Would you show more kindness to others? Would you be more generous to others and to yourself? Would you love others well by doing this thing, whether it is getting in the Word first thing in the morning or listening to a podcast, like a Bible reading podcast first thing in the morning? Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a spiritual growth specifically, but I'd want to challenge us to think about, okay, even if I go for a walk, each day, how is that going to help me, maybe look more like Jesus? It's by being a good steward of my body, right? Being a good steward of the temple he's given me, or even stewarding and caring for your pets. If you're like me, Kodak, he's here. And so thinking about that, how can we show the world who Jesus is by the way we live our lives? And that's something that is just so encouraging and just a good reminder to just reassess and think about, what are the things I really want to commit to? So the good news, friends, for you and I is that it's February. It is the shortest month of the year. And so that makes me really excited, and a good challenge of like, okay, we can do this together. We can pick one thing, and you can let me know in the comments over on YouTube or over on Spotify. You can put comments in there, and we can challenge one another to do something, every day, just one thing. And so it might be journaling and gratitude. I have this journal this year. I love taking Polaroids so much last year. However, it is quite expensive. It was an expensive hobby, still is, but just, not that commitment of every day for a year. But I love that practice of looking for where God was tapping me on the shoulder and saying, hey, Addie, pay attention to this thing that's happening. So it could be something like that. It could be gratitude or journaling, or just to document your life, what God is doing, and to cultivate a deeper awareness of the Holy Spirit, right? And like we said, you could commit to a walk each day, or you could even, this would be a challenging stretch for many of us, and I know this, even for myself, trying to commit to not looking at your phone first thing in the morning. That would take some more, commitment and some more kind of, figuring out some practical things like, okay, where am I going to put my phone? Especially if you're just an independent household, or if you're a young adult without roommates or with roommates, people need to get a hold of you. That's going to take some more planning. You could have a flip phone I have a flip phone. It's like my pager phone, my friends call it. So you could have a solution like that. There's things there. And then one of those devotional resources I mentioned in the very beginning of the year, where, opening our Bibles more, there are a couple really good resources like the Daily Light or Catching Whimsy. I have it on my bookshelf over there. There's a couple of different things where you could just have that set on your bedside table and be like, okay, this is the first thing I'm going to read, first thing, or Jesus Calling. There are so many good resources that can really help us set our mind on Jesus and on the day and what he is propelling us to do, the way that we want to spend our time, just out of a true response of the gospel, right? I'm reading this one book and we'll probably talk about it here, but there was in this chapter, he was talking about the way we express the things that we love is what we give our time to. So let that be a challenge for you and I, where we spend our time shows the things that we love and the things that are truly a priority. And I thought that was really encouraging. Also, a good challenge, a good reminder for you and I, friend. I want to leave us with some encouragement, some final thoughts, if you will. Just the encouragement that, this is only February, and regardless of when you're listening to this, even if it's a month later or next year, I'm still glad you're here, friend. But just the encouragement that our primary focus, that priority, it's going to shift, possibly weekly, monthly, seasonally, even a year. It's going to change. It will, ebb and flow. And so we shouldn't confuse the many tasks that we have, though, with multiple priorities. By drawing near to Jesus, we can listen to his guidance and effectively establish our priorities. So let that be the encouragement for you and I, friend, that our priorities, our primary focus, it's going to shift, different seasons. It's not going to look the same as it does for a friend over here or a friend over there. We're going to have different priorities, and that's okay. But just remember, the most important thing is drawing near to Jesus daily, where we can be listening to his word in right relationship with him. And out of that time, we're going to know what is the highest priority, right? The singular priority. And I would encourage you and encourage myself that our singular priority is to follow Jesus, to pursue him fervently, and trust that he is guiding our steps. So we don't usually do this, I guess, to end the episode, but this verse really encouraged me and kind of helped this episode come to light. And so I want to leave us with a blessing. Psalm 119:105. And it says, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light for my path." So let that be a verse that we meditate and we dwell on and helps us encounter Jesus and trust him daily, right? That's what I'm praying for us, friends. And if something encouraged you in this episode or a couple previous episodes, it would honestly mean the world to me if you would go over on Apple Podcast, rate and review the show, leave a review, and rate on Spotify. That is truly how the podcast gets to more friends and how we can encourage one another and help other people carry the gentle love of Jesus wherever they go. So if you would mind doing that, or even go subscribe to our YouTube channel. We just want to have more friends walking with Jesus. I am so thankful for you, friends, and I'm praying you have a wonderful week and continue to carry the gentle love of Jesus wherever you go. Bye, friends.